Episode 5 has to be one of my favourite episodes from this season. There was so much payoff, with all the coolest and most badass characters coming together to form the Fellowship of the White. However, we're definitely not going to see all of these characters by the end of the season. A lot of them will be killed next episode, as it is the dreaded episode. My name's HoboWolf, and today I'm going to go over all the characters that have gone off the wall, and I'm going to measure their survivability, based off their plot lines and importance. I hope you enjoy. Just a little disclaimer before I start, I'll exclusively be talking about the Fellowship of the White, which have gone up north, instead of characters which are south of the wall, such as Littlefinger. It is my belief that Littlefinger will die this season, either this episode or the next episode, but I'm not going to cover his death. Now let's start with our main man, Jon Snow. Out of everyone going north of the wall, he definitely has the highest chance of survival. I mean, he's pretty much Jesus. There was so much left for Jon to do in Game of Thrones, such as the whole plotline in which he is the rightful ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, as we found out from Gilly. I mean, Gilly of all people. Red Team Review will be really happy about that. Yeah, so last episode we found out that Rhaegar and Lyanna had a secret wedding down in Dorne. Therefore that makes Jon the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, which challenges Dany, which creates a cool, interesting dynamic. Though we probably won't be able to see that this season. Obviously there'll be drama, and we'll probably be teased with Jon's death north of the wall at certain points within the episode. He may even actually die, but be revived by Beric Dondarrion, the same way how he revived Catelyn Stark in the books, so she would become Lady Stoneheart. Obviously that would trade his own life, which means that Beric Dondarrion would die. It'll probably come down to a scenario in which Jon sacrifices himself for the group. But he won't actually die. You have to remember all the possibilities in which help can arrive. I mean, look at who can help. You've got Bran Stark, who has incredibly powerful warging abilities. Then there's Daenerys, who has 3 teleporting dragons. But last, which I think is the most probable contender, is his uncle Benjen. We last saw Benjen Stark in Season 6, when he saved Brandon Stark. I think Benjen Stark will save Jon Snow this episode, and probably sacrifice himself. After all, Benjen Stark needs some proper closure for his character, and I think it's about time. Next, let's talk about Beric Dondarrion, the man with probably the best sounding voice in the show. People have been complaining about the drawn out monologues from him, but I can't help but love them. Can't you just appreciate that fucking voice? Personally, I don't see him surviving this episode. The main question surrounding Beric Dondarrion is why he's been kept alive by the Lord of Light. Maybe he will survive this episode and go on to fulfill a greater purpose. But I don't see that happening. I see him fulfilling his purpose this episode. I personally believe that he'll be essential to the survival of Jon Snow, who is, in my opinion, the true Azor Ahai. Or maybe he'll do heavy damage to the army of the dead with his flaming sword. Maybe he'll take out a White Walker or two. We can't be certain what his purpose is, but I'm sure we're all going to have our speculation pay off in the next episode. If he does survive, I'll be very surprised. I feel like his character needs closure. Out of everyone in the Fellowship of the White, I believe Thoros of Myr is the most at danger. It seems that his purpose has been fulfilled. He's revived Beric Dondarrion enough times, and he's managed to convince the Hound to fight the army of the dead. The Hound himself appears to have some importance among the gods as well, but we'll talk about him later. When you think about it, Thoros of Myr would be one of the hardest hitting deaths in the group. I mean, he has links to the most people. He's Beric's most trusted ally, he's an old comrade of Jorah, he's about the only person in the Brotherhood that the Hound can put up with, and he's had a love-hate relationship with Gendry in the past. It feels like Thoros' story has been pretty much accomplished. The Brotherhood without banners has been pretty much abolished at this point, and there doesn't really seem like any need to keep him. It seems that Thoros and Beric have had a decent amount of screen time this season to make their deaths somewhat impactful. Next, let's talk about probably my favourite character right now. Ya boy, Gendry. I really hope they don't pull a Rickon and Osha and kill him. Like, he's been back for like 1 episode. Stop, no. If they do, I will be extremely mad, and I'll probably be upset and cry. There was a hint of him dying in the preview, with the Hound wielding his Warhammer. However, despite all of this, considering he was only reintroduced last episode, I think he'll survive. The seeds of his and Jon's friendship has only just been planted, and I believe he'll be part of a much larger story arc ahead of him. I mean, he kind of has a claim to the Iron Throne when you think about it. He is a bastard of Robert Baratheon, and it is clear in the opening credits that King's Landing is still believed to be under Baratheon rule. However, I don't think that Gendry will go for the throne, but rather I can see him becoming the ruler of the Stormlands. He could even be legitimized as a Baratheon. Just off topic here for a second, but I believe by the end of the show, the Iron Throne will be abolished, and there will be no more need for wardens. Or, there'll be less wardens. I believe all the areas within the show will have their own kings and queens, such as the king or queen of the Stormlands, king or queen of the North, king or queen of the Westerlands, you get it. There are many contenders that could fill up these spots, such as Tyrion, Jon Snow, Daenerys, Gendry, and so on. You get my idea. And so if this idea gets carried out, it'll be pretty impactful if Gendry, a bastard brought up in Flea Bottom, became a king. So yeah, I apologise for the rant, but I believe Gendry will survive. Now let's talk about your favourite ginger, Tormund. Sadly, I believe Tormund will die. He's a fan favourite right now, especially with his lust for Brienne. However, he doesn't really seem needed anymore, since the Free Folk follow Jon anyway, and there's no need for anyone to man the walls, since the White Walkers are going to inevitably cross anyway. His death would probably have the largest impact on Jon specifically, and might be the deciding factor for Jon staying behind and trying to save the group. His romance, with inverted commas, his romance with Brienne is likely to just be a bit of fun for the writers, as Brienne's romance plotline is mainly orientated around Jaime, not Tormund. Plus, he has an axe for some reason, and we all know that wildlings with axes don't really survive for that long. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I believe the Hound will survive. This one's a bit debatable. I actually had a debate with my friend about this, but I believe that the Hound still has much to do in terms of his story. I mean, someone needs to kill the Mountain. There is so much possibility for the Hound, also in terms of reunions. I imagine after Eastwatch, Jon may return to Winterfell, where he'll find out about his parents through Bran, and maybe even Sam, if he gets there in time. Imagine a reunion between the Hound, Brienne, Sansa, and Arya. That's something that I think we'd all love to see, and I think it's something that David and Dan would want to implement too. There's so many possibilities for that dynamic. Also, as stated in Season 6, the gods are not done with the Hound. He must serve some greater purpose. And finally, let's talk about Mr. Friendzone himself, Jorah Mormont. I think Jorah will definitely survive this episode. He's just been cured of grayscale after all. Not only this, but there's so much potential to do with the love triangle between him, Daenerys and Jon. Dany and Jon are quite clearly falling in love. This will become a complicated mess as Jon finds out about his heritage, and Jorah watches as the love of his life falls in love with another. There's so much potential, like think about it. Jorah was exiled from Westeros and shunned by his father, the same father who treated Jon Snow like his own son, and gave him the Mormont family Valyrian sword, which should have gone to Jorah, but he was exiled. Now Dany is falling in love with Jon. It's almost like Jon is the man that Jorah always wanted to be. Jon and Jorah's storylines have always been sort of indirectly related, and so it'll be very interesting to see their dynamic. And so there we have it, they're the characters who I think are going to survive and die this episode. Episode 6 is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. So much is going to happen, and so many storylines are just going to go crazy. It's going to be great, and I'm so excited. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe, because I'm making more videos now. And yeah, I hope this video is okay. I know my last one wasn't very good. So I'll see you next time.